Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? This is a tag video. I've been tagged by JdrD30, and I guess he tagged me a while ago, and I didn't notice, so I apologize. So it's questions for DMs. So here you go. Number one, what do you call player agency? Simply that you get to control everything about your character, what they do, or at least what they try to do. You get to plan the plan, not necessarily the results. So you don't get to dictate the outcome, just what you try to do. If you have a henchman or a hireling or retainer, you get to control them too. But at the DM, me, in this case, I get to have final veto. So if he has a morale issue you don't know about, or you're just trying to put him in harm's way, then that's not cool. But you get to control them too, for the most part. But as your character, your real character, yeah, you can control everything about him. I don't care what the rules are or what's forbidden or not. What do you want to do? So let's see. What's the second question here? I'm trying to read this off my phone. Two, what does railroading mean to you if you do apply it? If not, can you say why? Railroading means simply that you're going to go from A to B whether you want to or not, and you're going to go on this train. That's where the term comes from. You can't get off. You can't do something else. You can't deviate from this plan. I don't particularly like it. Sometimes you have to use it, like in a con situation or whatever. Not a big fan. Sometimes I'm doing it without realizing I'm doing it. Somebody actually kind of threw me a loop, or threw me for a loop a little while ago. And I had to think, well, geez, how am I going to make this work? So sometimes you realize all of a sudden that you're railroading and you don't even intend to. So I'm not a big fan of it. Number three, how does it feel for you when you have had a bad session? Not great. The con I just went to was not my best session. I hadn't DM'd in a while. I hadn't prepared as much as I would have liked to. I was tired, etc. And I got to see some really good DMs in action. So I kind of was comparing myself to them because they were, one guy was really hitting his stride really well. I played in this game, and that was, this guy, Handy Haversack is his moniker. He was just, outstanding that day. I was like, wow. And I kind of sucked afterwards. So it doesn't feel great, but, you chalk it up for a learning experience. For a couple of days, I felt terrible. And then I, said, okay, well, I'm going to do better next time, and here's what I need to do to improve. And that's what happens. Four, how do you handle bad players? What are some ways you would describe behavior of a bad player in your view? First of all, not so well. I'm not so good at handling bad players. That's still something I'm working on. So there you have it. If they're not engaged, that's really kind of the hallmark of a bad player. If they're really just not there, present in the moment, whether they're goofing around or whatever, that's a big thing. And otherwise, if you're being a rules lawyer and being argumentative, and you want the rules to be the way you want them to be, then that's kind of being a bad player too. Those are the biggest things, really, as far as bad players are concerned. Five, what is a good player in your opinion? What are some things that good players do? They're just involved. They're creative. They think outside the box. They know as best they can the game system, so you don't have to kind of hold them by the hand. It might take them a while, but just somebody that really interacts. They don't have to be the most animated person, ever, but they go there and they have some fun and they interact, and that's a good player, and definitely the creative person that kind of comes up with things that I never would have thought of. I like that. And somebody that's easy to get along with too. Somebody they're like, first and foremost, takes a deep breath and they're gonna have fun. They don't get too uptight about stuff. Six, how do you handle splitting up a group? If you do, if not, can you say why? I really don't like to. There's no good way to split the party. This is kind of one of those places where you go back to player one and player agency, and I'm saying, really, do you really want to do that? Do you know how much of a pain this is going to be? For a little short periods of time, this guy goes scouts. We split up for the night. And kind of say what we're doing in town. Sure, that's cool. I don't mind that. But if it's a really big, prolonged thing, I don't like it. But certainly, in certain cases, it's fine. If everybody goes to town, they're going to do different things and interact with different people. Sure, why not? It just shouldn't. People shouldn't be sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 15 minutes while you're doing that. 7. What do you prefer more? Interaction / roleplay, combat, puzzles, traps, or a mix? Puzzles / traps or a mix. I guess I'm going to say quotation marks, the punctuation marks. There you go. Question mark. Gosh, it depends on the situation. Interaction and role-playing can be a lot of fun. Some of the games I've played in as a player and as a DM, most of the time we were just kind of figuring stuff out and coming up with grand schemes and plans, and that was a hoot. I like a little bit of puzzles, you know, trap kind of situation every once in a while, like figuring out some riddles. And combat's always fun, you know, but it can be kind of scary. So I try not to do that too much. So I guess kind of a mix. You know, it depends. The group kind of dictates how this is going to happen. Usually, the mix of players tends to drive it in one direction or another, and to kind of go with that. 8. Do you tinker with the rule set you use or use it as written, and would you please explain why? Obviously, yes, I tinker a little bit. I don't tinker as much as I used to. Usually just if it doesn't make sense to me, or like, you know, like I said, you know, I've been saying over and over again recently, we don't have a lot of time in my case, so, you know, I want to make advancement a little faster. And there were things about like thief stuff and whatnot I just kind of want to improve a little bit. Or there you know, other people's house rules that I really liked. I'm like, well, I'm going to play BXD&D, I think, but I'm going to steal this house rule, you know, from whatever, you know, clone or what have you. Nothing too crazy, but I like doing that. 9. Do you mind running NPCs with a group of player characters? I really don't like to. I've done it a bunch of times. It gets to be a drag for a variety of reasons. You know, and one of them is that, like, a lot of times this NPC might be better and get some spotlight time that the players, you know, are going to be a little resentful about. And it's just another guy for me to run. I'd much rather have somebody run a henchman if they want another class along, or they feel like they need another body. That sort of thing. I don't like to run a lot of NPCs. Now, an NPC that's kind of like this recurring guy that kind of shows up with them and that does stuff, yeah, that's cool. But like, you're going to have some guy in your party, so nobody wants to play a cleric, so I'm going to play the cleric. I don't like to do that. Just a pain. 10. Thoughts on campaigns and one-shots. Do you prefer one more than the other, or are you fine with either? I like campaigns. One-shots are okay, but I like a campaign. I like something that goes on and gets more and more interesting, and we peel more layers of the onion off over time. I like that. 11. How much fantasy versus realism do you apply in most of your games? Kind of a weird question. I guess fantasy. I don't like things to be ultra realistic, and it's mostly because I don't want to like be ultra realistic in terms of things like how much you carry, like, and how many pounds is that, and or combat and like, oh, you're really hurt. Where are you hurt? All that kind of, that doesn't interest me. And fantasy is kind of fun. Like I like that whole thing. So I guess I lean a little bit more towards fantasy. But I've never really thought in terms of like that deeply. 12. Do you prefer running modules, hacking modules, or running your own story? I like my own story. Modules are great. They give me a lot of great ideas. But I like my own stuff. 13. What gaming system has gotten you the best results? Tell us about it. I like BXD&D and kind of looking into the various clones and even OD&D. But I like it simple. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I kind of grew up with, started out with, and that's what I've kind of gravitated back towards. So that's what I like. 14. What method has gotten you the best results, and tell us about it? I guess a method, when they say method, they mean like, as a DM. I guess it would be letting the players kind of drive the bus as much as possible. Like, what do you want to do? And kind of, instead of saying, no, you can't do that, because, I've played with some players that have thrown me some curveballs. You're like, are you kidding me? And deciding, taking a step back, maybe rolling some dice, maybe thinking about it for a second, and, not railroading them. Because sometimes I kind of have an idea of what might happen in situation X, like they're going to have an encounter with a group of bandits or whatever, but they pull something out of it, I never would have thought of it. I'm like, well, before I have the bandits draw swords, what might happen? And so I like to let the players kind of drive the bus as much as possible, and then kind of react to that. So I like to have an idea of what's the story in the world is, or what's going on in the world, but then let them kind of drive the bus. And that as a player, I've done that as a DM. That's a lot more fun. I like to be surprised. And certainly worked out the best, rather than me trying to control everything. I have the final say in what happens and how things happen, but I don't want to write the story and then have them sit down and play it out. That's not fun. 15. What got you into running these kind of games? I've talked about this before, but my parents, especially my dad, got me into. He made me watch Star Trek as a kid. Not made me, but he just introduced me to that. He gave me The Hobbit and he gave me The Lord of the Rings as a really little kid. I read that. Got me in science and fantasy book club membership, or science fiction book club membership. Started getting me the Asimov's Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine. I think it was Science Fiction magazine back in the day. And I just started. I kind of fell in love with the genre. And then fast forward, it's 1981. some of my friends were playing D&D. I kind of heard about it, and get my parents to buy me the Moldve basic box and read that thing and be like, oh my God, this is cool. And kind of quickly graduated to playing AD&D and bought all those books. And kind of, if I could do anything over again, I wish I had waited for a while and played some more BX back in the day. But that's it, and I just kind of fell in love with it. That was a long time ago. And I always kind of liked the idea of being a DM. And 16, who are you tagging? I haven't been that involved in YouTube for a while. So I'm probably not going to tag anybody. Maybe Tetsubo57. I have to look and see if he's been tagged in this particular series. But that's it. I guess my answers might be a little boring, but that's kind of how I roll. A little boring.